Good afternoon. I'm George Latimer, Westchester County Executive. Today is Monday, January 23rd. Gung Hei Fa Choi, which is a wish to all of our Asian brothers and sisters celebrating the Lunar New Year, which began last night, and the celebration of which will continue for a few days. We have just celebrated the calendar New Year a little bit earlier than a month ago, and now the Lunar New Year follows that by about a month. And of course, there'll be great festivities all over Westchester County, all over the world, as we welcome in the Year of the Rabbit 2023. For that purposes, our Westchester County Asian American Advisory Board is joining our county executive team and county legislature with a celebration for the Lunar New Year at a reception here in the county office building on the 9th floor tomorrow, Tuesday, January 24th at 5:30. We're sure it'll be a great celebration, and of course we reach out to all of our different ethnic groups in the county, and in this particular case to our Asian American brothers and sisters, that we hope they have a very festive time of the year. As we're here today, this is our weekly report. We'll give you an update on a number of issues that are at hand. I'm very happy to have one of our local municipal officials that I'll introduce in just a second with us here. Bridget Gibbons, who's our Director of Economic Development, will come in to talk about our bioscience initiatives. Ken Jenkins, Deputy County Executive, will join me up here, and he will give you an update on our state legislative package, the issues that we as a county government are going to our state legislators now that they're in Albany and the new legislative session has started. I want to talk about some of those issues that are important to us here. Ken will cover that as well as participate in all of this. As you know, every week we try to have a different local official, a town supervisor, a village mayor, or a city mayor, and there's 45 in totality, to join us here and talk a little bit about their community. And of course, Westchester is very diverse. We have communities as large as the city of Yonkers, over 200,000 people, third largest city in the state, down to the village of Buchanan, which is about 2,000 people in the northwest corner of the state incorporated. And each of them describe a little bit about their community, what makes their community special. I have the good fortune to travel around this county on an ongoing basis and have a chance to visit all of these different corners. You may or may not, depending on where you live. Today our guest is the Pelham Town Supervisor, Dan McLaughlin. Dan has an interesting government, very similar to what we talked about a couple of weeks ago when Gary Zuckerman from Rye Town is here. Pelham Town and Town of Rye are similar in that they are town governments with town responsibility, but all of the area that they represent is also represented by a village government. There are a number of towns that have unincorporated sections, and they provide the basic services for the unincorporated residents. So it's a bit of a mishmash. Dan knows his way around these things. He's been dealing with it for a number of years, and he'll tell you about how the 12,000 people of the town of Pelham are being well served. So let me introduce our guest this week, Town Supervisor from the town of Pelham, Dan McLaughlin. Dan, thank you very much for being with us here today.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Hello, everyone. I've been the town supervisor for the last 4 years. I've lived in Pelham 38 years, so I do know something about Pelham. I raised my 2 kids in Pelham. My wife and I raised our 2 kids in Pelham. And as a matter of fact, my son, my 38-year-old son, has moved back to Pelham with his children and his wife. And that happens a lot in Pelham, because it's a small town feel. As George said, he explained what the town is, similar to the town of Rye. There are people in the town of Pelham that don't know what we do and what we don't do. So the town of Pelham is made up of 2 villages, the village of Pelham and the village of Pelham Manor. They handle all the municipal services. We do not handle municipal services. We don't have a police force to town. We don't have sanitation. We don't have fire department. What we do have is a court that we run for the town. We also run the recreation programs in the town. We also run tax collection. We also are the tax assessor. And we also run the libraries. One of the other things we have in the courts is we have constables. That's a little bit unusual in Westchester. We do not have the police do the courts. We have our own constable force. We have 14 police constable officers that run the courts. Pelham was settled in 1654 by Tom Pell, who bought it from the Siwanoy Indians. We are the oldest town in Westchester, and we're about the 3rd smallest in terms of population. Both the village of Pelham and the village of Pelham Manor have about the same population, about 6,000 people in each town. We have 4 elementary schools, which are really neighborhood schools. You can walk to the school in the neighborhood, and that's the elementary schools. We have Prospect Hill, we have Simonoy, we have we have the Hutchinson School, which we just made, and the Colonial School. Your children go to that school until the 5th grade, and in the 6th grade, they go to the middle school. And the middle school and the Pelham Memorial High School are in the same property. They're separated, but they're the same property. And we have one high school, Pelham Memorial High School, and we have one middle school. Pelham High School, by the way, just celebrated its 100th birthday of the building. We have 5 different houses of worship. We have a Catholic church, we have an Episcopal church, we have a Presbyterian church, we have a Jewish center, and we have a Unitarian church. Also, in Pelham, we have 2 membership clubs. One, the Pelham Country Club, and the other one is the New York AC. We have a club called the Manor Club, which is over 100 years old, which used to be just for the women, but now today is both men and women. On the recreation side, I think we have one of the best recreation programs in the county. That's my opinion. We have 44 different programs. We have 10 senior programs, exercise programs. We have a medical van that takes them to doctors. We have 10 adult programs, softball, baseball, pickleball. We have pickleball as well. We have 18 youth programs, which goes from chess, dance, theater, tennis, baseball, basketball, and summer camps. We also the town runs summer concerts, which we do during the summer on Monday nights, and is well attended. We have many volunteer organizations. We have the Scouts, we have the Boy Scouts, the Girl Scouts, we have the Junior League of Pelham, we have the Pelham Civic Association, we have Pelham Together, which handles youth activities. We have the Pelham Manor Volunteer Fire Department, we have the American Legion, we have a Rotary Club, we have the Pelham Arts Center, we have the Pelham Picture House. All of these are done by volunteers, and there's a tremendous amount of volunteers in the town of Pelham. There's a saying that I'd like to leave with you. The town of Pelham has small town values, but it's nestled by the greatest city in the world, New York. Thank you very much. Thank you, George.
Pleasure having you with us.
Thank you.
You have that last sheet of paper back?
Oops, sorry.
Thanks. Appreciate it. Dan McLaughlin, who is the town supervisor of the town of Pelham. Very happy to have him here. And as he pointed out, 2 villages that comprise it, Village of Pelham Manor. A trivia question, if this ever comes up in your life, when was the last time that a municipal government was merged into another government? It happened in Pelham because it was a village of North Pelham, which in the 1970s was merged into what is now the village of Pelham. So at one point there was 3 villages that comprised the town of Pelham. That was the last merger. And then also another trivia question. I don't know who's going to ask you this question, but the city of New Rochelle actually came out of Pelham. Pelham was the Pell family grant of land, and at some point they sold acreage to the Huguenots, the French Huguenots, who then created New Rochelle, the New Rochelle from La Rochelle, which became, of course, a city of 80,000 people directly to the east of Pelham. So it's an interesting history that Pelham has, and a tremendous present and a tremendous future. We're happy that Dan McLaughlin could join us here. As we talk about a couple of the issues of the day, perhaps the most searing issue is the one that happened last week. We talked about that here at this podium on Friday, which was the loss of 2 lives when an airplane was trying to make an emergency landing at Westchester County Airport and was unable to do so safely. They crashed just outside of Rye Lake, and 2 lives were lost. The plane took off from JFK Airport at about 5 o'clock on Thursday evening, and as you know, the weather on Thursday evening was heavy rain and rather miserable travel conditions. They were headed to Cleveland, to the Cuyahoga County Airport, and there were there was a pilot and a passenger on the plane. An emergency caused some engine problems very shortly into the trip, and within a few minutes of flying from JFK over the Long Island Sound, they needed to make an emergency landing. They attempted to do so at the county airport, and unfortunately the plane did not make safe landing, fell about a mile and a half, 2 miles short of the runway. The combined emergency service crews in Westchester County and the state of New York and the local communities all combined together to make every effort to rescue and then to find the remains and recover that which was lost in those in that tragedy. By 11 o'clock at night, the plane and the two deceased individuals were recovered because they happened to be in the Orthodox Jewish tradition. We needed to make sure that their bodies were properly reviewed and processed, and we met that goal, and the bodies were then being sent back to the Ohio community that they came from and their families. It was an example of the fragility of life, and it is also an example of the hard work of our people in all levels of response that were there on the spot. An update as of 10:30 this morning, the aircraft recovery effort status is as follows. First of all, yesterday, Sunday, all small aircraft debris was removed from the immediate area. The immediate area is a wooded area, about a 20-minute walk in from King Street, Route 120, on the Armonk side, not far from MBIA's corporate headquarters. It is a remote area. There's no residences there, and the small aircraft debris was removed. Tomorrow, on Tuesday, a major helicopter will come in to lift out the larger portions of the airplane that remain, and some of that was treetop when the plane came to rest. The National Traffic Safety Board, Transportation Safety Board, NTSB, will issue a preliminary report in about 15 days, first week of February or so, describing the circumstances that led to the crash, and then the NTSB will issue a final comprehensive report somewhere in the next year to year and a half. And of course, that will be of great interest to those in the aviation field because it will talk to what happened to the plane itself, that it lost oil pressure and whatever else happened. But from our standpoint, we want to thank one more time those at the airport management team, those from our county police and our county emergency services departments for their role. Ken Jenkins, as deputy county executive, was present and available, as were senior managers from different relevant departments. We had tremendous response from local fire departments, Armonk, West Harrison, Purchase, Portchester, all responded from that standpoint. And of course, the New York City DEP police were essential on the ground. There was a search project that happened. If you remember Thursday night, there was thunder and lightning at various times. We were walking through a pitch black area, almost impossible to see that time, given the time of night and the darkness. And it was quite an effort to locate the site of the crash. They used modern technologies to ping telephones in order to do that, and we thank them all for their work. When these reports are out, we'll certainly share them. As we receive them, they'll be shared in the general press, and we hope that we don't see the like of this anytime soon. On a more positive note, we're certainly working on a host of different issues in county government, proactive, trying to stay ahead of the different trends. One of the things that we've been very proud of is the work that's being done in our Department of Economic Development. Bridget Gibbons is the Director of Economic Development. She's done a terrific job for us. She's been with us for the full duration, the 5+ years of this administration, and she's going to be here to talk a little bit about the efforts that we're making in the area of bioscience. That includes an event that's upcoming in the first week of February. So let me invite our Director of Economic Development, Bridget Gibbons, to join us here at the microphone.
Thank you, County Executive. I'm pleased to announce that the Westchester County Office of Economic Development and the Westchester County Association will host a panel focused on the New York Metro Region Life Science Outlook on February 2nd, 2023 at the auditorium at 360 Hamilton Avenue in White Plains. Coffee and breakfast will be served starting at 8:30, and the event starts at 9 o'clock with welcoming remarks by our very own Deputy County Executive Ken Jenkins. The tri-state region leads the nation in recent life sciences activity. Westchester County in particular is home to the largest life sciences cluster in New York State, with over 8,000 jobs, representing 20% of New York State's total private sector life sciences employment. The panelists will discuss why the region has become a leading force in the life sciences, as well as the outlook going forward. The morning event will feature a panel discussion moderated by Mary Howard, Executive Director of First Time Founder and Office of Economic Development Partner, who runs our Westchester County Life Sciences Accelerator Program. Panelists will include Dr. Raj Ratan, Executive Director from Burke Neurological Institute, Teresa Lest, Principal at Deloitte Consulting, George Santo, Executive Director at JP Morgan Life Sciences Commercial Banking, and Deborah Viola, Vice President of the Office of Research and Grants Administration, Westchester Medical Center. The event will allow us to take a look at national trends, local innovations, and how we can continue to support businesses in the life science throughout the region. The Office of Economic Development is invested in the continued growth and success of the life sciences industry, and we're thrilled to partner with the Westchester County Association to highlight the latest trends and future outlook at this exciting sector. To register for the panel, please go to Westchester County Association website, westchester.org, and click on events. If you have any questions, you can email me at bgibbons@westchestergov.com or call me at 995-2952. We look forward to seeing you there. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That's Bridget Gibbons, our Director of Economic Development, 995-2952. For any questions about this particular event that's coming up on February 2nd, we look forward to a good response and audience. I'm going to be joined by Ken Jenkins, our Deputy County Executive, as we touch on a few other points. Our administration has submitted legislation to the Westchester County Board of Legislators to address this recent incident that occurred with Congressman George Santos, in which he is being roundly criticized for being untruthful in almost every element of his life as part of the process by which he was elected a congressman representing Long Island. Notwithstanding the fact that the issue has become the fodder for late-night comedians and the usual battle in Washington between the two political parties, we wanted to do something constructive in this area. And so what we've done is drafted a piece of legislation, now subject to the Board of Legislators' review and modification as they see fit, to try to at least deal with the issue of truthful disclosure of information by candidates. Now, a county government has authority only over those positions that run countywide. So for county executive candidates in the future and county legislative candidates, this law, if it is passed, would do the following things. It would require that no later than 30 days following the nomination or designation of a candidate for the position of county legislator or county executive, that individual must file with the Westchester County Board of Ethics a candidate disclosure form. And that candidate disclosure form will be officially created by the Board of Ethics, and it will require disclosure of the following information. Seems pretty simple, but these are things that, in the case of Santos, each of which were exaggerated or flat out lied about. That resume require the full legal name of the candidate, as well as any other previously used legal names, the date of birth of the candidate, the full legal names of any spouse or registered domestic partner of the candidate, and any dependent children of the candidate, the names of all high schools and post-secondary institutions of education, including but not limited to trade and vocation schools, colleges, graduate programs enrolled in by the candidates, along with the dates of enrollment, whether the candidate graduated or not, and if so, the month and year of the graduation and the degree awarded. It should also include the names and addresses of full-time employment that was held by the candidates in the 25 years prior to their candidacy, including the dates of employment and titles held. It would also include listing military service by the candidate, including dates of service, the branch of the military, the highest rank held, and the type of discharged, and then a notarized certification by the candidate that the information contained on this form is true and complete to the best of their candidate's knowledge. This form will be provided to the candidates by the Board of Elections upon the candidate's nomination or designation. They need to fill it out by date specific, submit it. Some of these things will be discussed before the Board of Legislators. We hope they will adopt this bill. I think the general sense is that this is really a very minimum set of requirements. What we're in essence doing is taking a person's resume and having you certify that this resume is accurate. Now, some of the things that came up in the Santos question, the ethnicity of his mother, where she died, whether she died at 9/11 or she escaped 9/11, all of these different things, his ethnic background, we're not looking for that kind of specificity. But the basic information about your education, your employment, military status, if you have military status, and your basic family information, we think is essential basic information to have for any candidate running for office. This requirement will only apply to county executive and county legislative candidates because that's all the county can control. If we do pass this into law, that will be a requirement that will be in effect for the 23 elections when county legislators are up for grabs. But I'm sure that the state and the federal government are looking at similar provisions that would be more broad-based. If the state were to adopt something along these lines or something even more extensive, it would apply to all elections within the state, so municipal elections, judicial elections, all across the board. And of course, if it happened at a federal government level, that it would apply to all positions, including those that are running for the Congress of the United States. It's almost inconceivable that there would be this kind of across-the-board misrepresentation of your background. We all have resumes. I've run for office any number of times, as has Ken, and the narrative of what our lives is one part of how people evaluate you. And we assume that you're being accurate to the nth degree in these things. Now, there's always some exaggeration. Somebody might stretch out some facts. Maybe their position in a particular company wasn't as high as it seems to be, and they say they worked in a department when in fact they worked in a low-level position in that department. The assumption is somehow they were more of a senior executive. There's a lot of ways to work around the fringes. But to outright lie whether you worked someplace and didn't, then outright lie that you went to a school of higher education and you didn't, that you hold a degree when you don't, and perhaps worst of all, if you claim to have military service and you have no military service, that is not a part of the Santos case, but that has been true in other cases, that kind of misrepresentation is just not acceptable. And we have to begin the competitive process of campaigns knowing what are the honest baseline for each individual. And then, campaigns take their course, and it's a competitive environment. Nobody said it was beanbag to be a candidate for public office, but there should at least be an agreed-upon base of information. We hope this law does that. The Board of Legislators will discuss it. Hopefully they're going to act on it. I'm sure they will at some point with whatever modifications they see fit. It will go into place, and it will be one protection in that whatever forms are filed through the Ethics Board, they will be foilable by individuals in the civilian population. The press will have easy access to it. It isn't like posting something on your website which you change if you feel like it. It'll be there locked in, and so we hope it'll be a positive action. We have a much more elaborate list of legislative issues to deal with that involve the state of New York. The state legislature, the Assembly, and the Senate are now in session for the new year, and we try to provide for our state legislators some of those priority issues. Ken is going to cover what some of those issues are as part of our state legislative package.
Thanks, George. As the county executive was just describing, we have something that happens every year between the county executive's office and County Executive Latimer, and certainly all of our colleagues on the Board of Legislators. It's called the Joint Legislative Package, and we have one for the state level, and we also have one for the federal level. Right now, we're working really hard on the state level items because as the Governor Hochul is shaping her budget, and then the two houses, the state Senate and state Assembly, begin their process of working on their own individual items, plus the plethora of bills that each one of the state legislators work through on an annual basis. The county has a set that are priority to us, and certainly priorities to all of you in Westchester County because it continues the progress that's been made. The very first one is about the reauthorization and making permanent Westchester County sales tax. You'd be surprised that across the state of New York that the sales tax bills are 3-year bills, and then they have extenders on those particular items, which means that individual legislators have to vote on making sure the county sales tax is permanent in that particular area, in that particular county. And it's something that shouldn't really be an issue. The governor has put it on for the last 4 terms. Governor Cuomo and Governor Hochul have put it in the last 4 budgets to be able to discuss making that permanent, because it reduces a vote that has to take place every year, and certainly there's legislative jockeying and discussions that take place. But for Westchester County, that was what happened. With the increase in sales tax allowed us to share over $115 million with local municipalities, $40 million in school districts, and then it allowed us to be able, for the 4th year in a row, to be able to reduce and propose a decrease in property tax dollars because the sales taxes come in so well. In the last 2 years, sales tax has been, and in many places this is the case, that it is the main source of revenue for many municipalities, and now in Westchester County, it exceeds our property tax values by the amount of money that comes in, and that's something that's very important to us, and we hope that that gets made permanent. The other couple of items that we have that are high level for us, authorizing red light cameras for Westchester County. And red light cameras, as many of us know from the ones in local municipalities, make sure that you just follow the vehicle and traffic safety laws. So it's not about just red lights, it's about making sure that you stop at the light before you make that right on red, and certainly it's about health and safety. It's not about doing anything else but making sure our roads can be as safe as possible, and we're going to continue to work with our state legislators to do that and make sure that Westchester County has the same authority that our friends in other places, Nassau, Suffolk, New York City, many municipalities around Westchester County have, in order to move that forward. It's for up to 50 cameras on county roadways. So we're hopeful that that's going to get across the line this year with all of our colleagues at the state legislative level. The right to counsel or access to counsel, the continued payment and investment. New York State had $35 million that it put into eviction services. Westchester County had a program that was a lot less extensive, and this particular one would be a continuation of that funding. So that's part of our state legislative package to ensure that that happens, and then we can continue to work through the various mechanisms that we have in Westchester to prevent homelessness, to make sure that people can stay in their homes. Seniors especially can be able to continue to be able to move forward in their communities, and it continues to make sure that Westchester is a great place to live for everyone. There's two other ones that have to do with some other legal matters as well. One is about a pay raise for the 18B assigned counsel lawyers. It's a fancy way of saying that the lawyers that are assigned because a person could not afford one, those are the ones that in every courtroom, and certainly because the county executive loves making sure to mention our CSI references when we talk about different things. The reality is that the people in the 18B world in the state outside of New York City have not gotten a raise for a significant amount of time, and that has impacted, as far as the legal community is concerned, those who want to get involved and take those cases. And it's very important because we believe in our country that you are innocent until proven guilty, and that means you need to have the accurate level of representation to do that. And that's something that we want to make sure that happens, and the state pays for that, because there's this thing that the state does a lot of times, which is a state mandate, where they create a law, but they say that it's up to the local municipality to pay for that. And that's a challenge that we want to make sure that the state takes on, as well as with our right to counsel, our access to counsel items. There's two last ones that I want to mention because they also are connected to that funding stream. One is amending the Surface Transit Operating Aid formula. It's commonly called STOA. And if you want to think that Westchester County has the similar size transportation network, the B-line is a similar size to our friends in Nassau County, and we get about a third of the money they do. And we want to make sure that that gets leveled up to be able to have the same amount of aid coming in for our outstanding transit system. We did some tremendous things this year. The county executive pointed out and has implemented the 2 times during the year that we had free bus transportation. Well, if we're able to have the system get the money that it's supposed to from the state through the STOA aid formula, we'll be able to move forward and try to do some other creative items, including making the changes that are necessary for routes and system things that are enhancements to make sure that the great economic development that Bridget Gibbons was talking about before continues to move forward. That only happens when you have a healthy and robust public transportation system. All Westchester is asking for is to have the same equity and be a level playing field with other systems that are similar size. And the very last one that we want to do is talk about reimbursing counties for shelter costs and allowing some trust accounts. And while it sounds kind of technical, at the end of the day, it gives our Department of Social Services another tool to make sure that we can help prevent homelessness and to make sure that we help people to be able to move forward in finding places that match their income levels and that are in great communities, and making sure that those places are safe and secure. So this is another way of us making sure that we can help people and support those folks that need the assistance and to be able to get the kind of housing that's necessary and move forward together. So we have a lot of things on our agenda. Some of them are a little more technical than others, but because of the energy and effort that's been made over the years, we've been able to put Westchester County in great position to continue having forward progress with our partners at the state legislative level. And the latest example of that is with the Environmental Bond Act, and that's going to be some great things for us to talk about coming down the road. So make sure that you keep paying attention to that. That package will be in front of our state legislators, and we're certainly going to ask the members around the county that are watching today to be able to talk to their state legislators to help support these things that are very important for the county of Westchester. Back to you, George.
Thank you very much, Ken. A little bit of COVID information updated now as we are talking here on the 23rd of the month of January. There's been a lot of chatter over the last few weeks that COVID is on the rise, and I think the fear is that we're seeing individuals that we know come down with COVID, and so it does feel like it's coming closer to home. But the statistics that we have reported to the state really don't show that, and I want to just go over some of these numbers with you. And I do want to caution that because there is now quite a lot of at-home testing, there is no guarantee that the numbers that we have on the state dashboard is a complete picture of what the amount of infection is out there. That's one of the reasons why we discontinued the county dashboard, because we weren't sure that we could stand by those county numbers as being accurate. But what we have right now, comparing where we are, the most recent numbers as of yesterday show that we have 1,972 active cases of coronavirus. That is the lowest amount that we've had since about this time in November. In the past couple of years, we started to see an uptick in active cases after Halloween and during the month of November through the winter months. We are more indoors during the winter, and things can spread more easily indoors. This year, we did not see the uptick come until the end of November, and probably the Thanksgiving aftermath is what fueled that. But at 1,972 cases, that is the lowest amount that we've seen in the last 60, 90 days. 214 people are hospitalized currently due to COVID, and over the last 7-day period of time, we've had 8 fatalities to COVID. Compare this to where we were a month ago, just before Christmas, on December 22nd. Instead of having 1,972 cases this week, a month ago we had 3,228 active cases. An active case is someone who has tested positive over the 10-day period, hasn't yet gone through the 10 days, and therefore can't assume that their antibodies have fought off the disease. Where we have 214 hospitalized now, the number's a little bit higher, 239 a month ago. And the fatalities for the week of 8 a month ago, for that week, it was 12 fatalities. The numbers are dramatically lower than where they were a year ago. And I do caution that a year ago we had the Omicron outbreak, which was a significant increase to the point that we'd never seen previously during the pandemic. 1 year ago, instead of having 1,972 active cases, same date a year ago, 14,902 active cases a year ago. That's the impact of Omicron. We had 486 people hospitalized, again, 214 as of yesterday, more than double the amount hospitalized. And the fatalities, we had 8 in the last week. A year ago, we had 54 fatalities during the similar week. So as much as there's fear for COVID and people are saying, do I have to still mask? Should I go back to masking? Should I do this? Should I do that? The bottom line is we are well beyond where we were a year ago. Our vaccination ratio is much higher today than it was then, and the year prior to that, 2 years ago, we weren't yet vaccinating at the tail end of the 20 into the 21 season, and that was probably when we had the greatest amount of difficulties. Of the fatalities to COVID, we've had more than 2/3 of the fatalities occur during the period before vaccinations began. We had our 2,000th death to COVID February of 2021. Almost 2 years ago. That's when we hit 2,000. Now we're still shy of 3,000 fatalities. It does not mean that every fatality is not a tragedy, but it does mean that the rate of fatality, the rate of hospitalization, and the rate of infection have been down. We are now recently back to single-digit infection ratio, and an infection ratio is 100 people go in and test. If 9 people test positive and 91 test negative, then that's a 9% infection rate. And that number has been very low at various times in our time frame, but in more recent months it's been low double digits, 10 to 13%. Now we're under 10% for the last number of days, and we believe that trend can continue, and it's encouraging that that's where we are today. Not yet through the month of January. But we monitor this every single day, and if we continue to see a decrease in infection rate, a decrease in hospitalizations, a decrease in fatality, and a decrease in active cases, then that tells us that we're moving in the right direction in terms of COVID. I would also point out that you've heard no discussion about monkeypox and no discussion about polio. Those particular issues that came up a few months ago have been satisfied as not being active threats to individuals' health. That there may be an individual who contracts either disease is certainly possible. With polio, there's been no activity in Westchester County at all, nothing tracked in our sewerage and so forth. And with monkeypox, it's been now a couple of months since we've had any active cases reported. So I think the natural tendency to want to report what's new and to estimate it as being important and sometimes overestimating it may be where we're at right now. We seem to be in a position where we have a disease that is with us. It is endemic. We're going to have it for a long time. We're going to have to be vaccinated and be vaccinated multiple times. I understand a lot of people don't like vaccinations. Some number of people don't like it. I've been vaccinated 4 times now. I've had no ill effects from it, and I'm not a kid. And I think the reality is for the vast majority of us, we're managing this disease and we're having some success in managing it. Let me remind everybody as we close out the report that we continue to have a suspension of sales tax on home energy costs. If you have any questions, you can call the New York State Tax Information Center at 518-485-2889 if you have any questions about your bill. As we are now going into the second half of January, approaching February, December, January, and February are the months for which county sales tax has been lifted on home energy products, all products, natural gas, propane, oil, electric, and then some of the other means by which we heat our homes. It's important to understand that this has been done as a way to deal with some of the economic problems that we're facing, and we are watching a rise in energy costs that is outside the control of the county, but by lifting our sales tax, we've been able to help buffer that a little bit. In some cases, actually provide an advantage. It comes at the same time, as Ken pointed out, that we've cut county property taxes for the 4th straight year, and we've had other incentives dating back into 2022, some of which will be repeated in 2023, to try to reduce the cost of expenses to try to be helpful to you. As questions arise, the New York State Department of Taxation, we may have this on a scroll, provides a website as well as a telephone number. You're welcome to use it. Obviously, our office, 995-2900, exists to try to help direct you in the right direction. We are not the ones to help solve the problem, but we have communicated with the various agencies and organizations to stay on top of this. And when we reach the end of days in February, and sales taxes resume for March, we may yet have compensation in the month of March that will cover anything that may have been lost in the month of December in the front end of it. So it'll all balance out, and we'll give you that break to the best of our ability. Those are the points that we wanted to touch on today. If you have any questions on any of these topics, you're welcome to reach out to us at 914-995-2900. Our communications department has a web address an email address at communications@westchestergov.com. And we get a lot of different inquiries there. And of course, if you call us with a constituent issue, it goes to our constituent services team, and they will follow up for you. And then, of course, Ken and I are all over the county every day of our lives, and you'll see us somewhere along the line, and you can buttonhole us, when we're at the laundromat or when we're at the luncheonette or wherever we wind up being. You see us at a traffic light, roll the window down, ask a question, we're happy to try to answer it. But we appreciate your diligence in following this report if you've watched it to the end, and we hope this information has been helpful. We want to thank Dan McLaughlin again for being with us, Bridget Gibbons for another helpful update, and we wish you a very safe and a healthy week, and we'll be back with you next week to report again on what's happening here in Westchester County. I'm George Latimer, Westchester County Executive. Thanks for watching.